Hello, hello.
Can you listen to me?
I can.
Sure. Me too. Quickly. We have some people on internet watching us. And well, Leandro, first of all, thank you very much for having us for this special webinar about working abroad, having an international career, as it is our purpose. And well, just we'd like you to introduction of yourself, talking about how was the beginning of your experience in the United States, and what drove you there, you know?
Yeah.
What was the reasons that made you take this decision of traveling and having an international career?
Okay, fair. So good morning, everybody. For me, it's 7 a.m. I guess for you guys, it's almost noon. So my name is Leandro. I'm from Porto Alegre. I moved to the US almost 9 years ago. So actually, I always had the desire to live abroad, to live in another country. But I started my career in Porto Alegre. I studied business and accounting, and I started working for PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers in Porto Alegre. After a while, I started looking for opportunities to move abroad. And I remember after, I don't know, being working there for almost 6 years, I got this opportunity to move to London. But then my partners, the top guys at the Porto Alegre office, they said that they would not allow me to go because they needed me there to do my job. So that was very demotivating. And then I started looking for other opportunities for companies that would allow me, that at least give me the chance of moving to another country. So after 7 years almost at Price, I found this other company, DLL, De Lag Landen. It's a Dutch company that is based in Porto Alegre. What caught my attention on their job description was pretty much two things. One was that they require someone who speaks English, and the other one is that requires someone that was available for several international trips. So that was what made me apply for that position. So getting there, I really liked, because I would be reporting to the local CEO in country in Brazil, but my functional reporting would be to the US. So my director was in the US. So that was what made me accept that position, because it gave me that exposure to someone abroad. And since I always had that plan to live abroad, I thought that was a wise step for me. So I worked there always with that end in mind. So I create a good relationship with my two bosses, right? The boss in Brazil and my boss in the US. So when my boss in the US, when he had an opening, even though it was not something that I was fit for that job, because he had an opening for an IT related position, and I'm not IT, I was able to discuss with him and make him realize that I would be a good fit for that position, and if he would hire somebody else for that IT related job and open another position for me, and he did it. So then he transferred me from Porto Alegre to Pennsylvania, and that was after 2 years only working at DLL in Porto Alegre. So that was back in 2009. It was when I actually decided to move from Brazil to the US. If you guys remember, the financial crisis started in 2008. So 2009 was not a good timing for move. So I didn't have any special benefits. Usually when people move from work from one country to another, they receive these very good packages where the company pays you relocation and salary in your home country and your destination country. But because of that crisis, they say, hey, Leandro, if you want to move to the US, it's on you. We offer you the job, nothing much more. If you want to come here with your family, it's your choice. So I decided to take the risk. And my wife at that time, Laura, she had a very good job at Gerdau in Porto Alegre as well. So it was a family decision that she would quit her job and that we would move as a family to the US, just because I thought that was an important step in our career. So we did. So we moved in March 2009 to the US. And for our surprise, when we moved, my wife was pregnant. So we actually came to the US and we started our family here. So I was working here at DLL, Delac Landing, for 4.5 years in the US, in Pennsylvania. The adjustment at first was challenging. And I guess the most challenging thing is to move far from your family and friends. It's not that different. The workplace, the relationships with people, yes, it's different, but being away from family and friends is the most challenging part. And the weather, because Pennsylvania is really cold. So I remember taking a picture of my car showing minus 17 Celsius one day in the morning when I was leaving to go to work. So that was challenging. So anyhow, after 4.5 years at DLL, they by some other reasons that I can discuss later, they moved my visa from L1, which ties you to the company, to H1B, which allows you to move to another job. So they moved my visa to this H1B, and then I was free to look for another job. So I was able to find a job at Apple. So 4.5 years ago, I moved to Texas to work for Apple. And then very recently, 3 months ago, I left Apple to join Facebook. So I have been working for Facebook for the last 3 months. And for the last 5 years almost, I have been living in Austin, Texas. So that's a very high level overview of what brought me here to the US. I'm free to comment or to ask any questions you guys might have.
Okay. And as you said, there was not much difference at workplace working in the United States compared to working in Brazil. But culturally speaking, and in terms of working abroad as well, what could you pinpoint as one big difference, or as a difference that you had to adapt?
Yeah. Well, the first one, it's obvious, right? It's the language. So we leave Brazil and we think that, hey, I command English. I speak English really, really well. And then you go to this new country, and in your first meeting at job, you say, hi, how are you? And then people look at you and ask, where are you from? Come on, I just said hi. So it's something that you adjust really quickly, understanding that you will always have an accent and you are not it's not your own language. Yeah, so you will always be seeing, and it's just one sentence it takes for you to say that people will know you're not from there. But on the other hand, if I compare to Brazil, I remember working at, not as much as PwC, but at DLL, since it was a Dutch company, we had some people from the Netherlands coming to work at our office in Porto Alegre. And people used to make jokes and make fun of the way they speak, because of course they would speak Portuguese with an accent, right? They were trying to speak Portuguese. While this doesn't happen in the US, because there's so many people from different places that nobody really cares if you speak with an accent or where you're actually from, because everybody's from somewhere else. In a company, and I quickly learned, most of the IT departments, they are run by Indians, and they speak English, but they have a very specific accent. So it's something that you have to get used to if you need to make a call to IT, or if you are in a project call, you're gonna have to get used to that accent. And everybody in the US, they are used. So it is difficult, but they are willing to understand much more than we are, I would say, in Brazil, because it's so common for them to have people from other languages.
Okay.
Here is where I was in my career. It's a more senior work at the older than in Brazil. So in Brazil, if you're married with kids, you are the exception, because most people are very young at companies. So I would say the average age, I guess, in a regular office in Brazil, it's less than 30, and most people still don't have a family. So it's very normal in Brazil to go out after work, to hang out, to have like happy hour, to do stuff outside of work. While in the US, it was a shock for me, because everybody would, at 5, they would leave, and that's it. There was no connection outside of work, because people had their own lives, they had their own families to take care of. And in the US, it's also different, that people live far away from the work. So they have a long commute. Some people drive an hour to go back home. Some people drive 40 minutes. So the relationships at work, they are good. They are similar to Brazil, but they are restricted to the work hours. So after work, it's each one go their own ways, and they don't interact that much. So yeah.
Okay. And in terms of talking about culture and being a stranger in a strange land, let's say, as a foreigner, have you ever felt any kind of discrimination at work or not for being Brazilian?
No.
Have you ever felt something like that?
No, the easy and short answer is no. So, because especially in the US, there's so many illegal immigrants from other countries than Brazil, especially Mexico, that nobody sees Brazilian as one group of people that it's coming here to take the jobs out of the Americans. As they might see some people with very narrow mindset, might see Mexicans in that way, because there are 30 million Mexicans living in the US right now. So yeah, some people might have some preconceived against Mexicans, but that doesn't apply against to Brazilians. I would say the one thing that I noted, and I still notice, that I feel myself as a foreign. So I'm clearly not American, and it doesn't really matter where I'm from. I'm foreign, so I'm living in a country that's not my own. So the language is not my own. So I sometimes cannot express myself as well as somebody who is not even close as smart or prepared as I am. Their language, they are able to articulate a thought in a way that it sounds at first better. If you dig deeper, you will see that the content is not there, but the presentation, the first impression that you had, it's very important on communication. So that I definitely felt at first more. It's an adjustment, because you will try to make your point, you try to explain yourself, and you will see that you don't have the same ability as you used to have at home, because language, it's so critical, and you take for granted that, yeah, I speak English, I'll go there and I'll make it happen. It's not that easy. Sometimes you are in meetings and you have to influence others to understand your side, and because your vocabulary is limited, it's very tough to do that. So
until today.
So from that sense, until today, and I thought that before coming here, I thought, well, after a year or two, my English will be perfect, and I'll be an American speaking. And it doesn't change. Up until now, I've been living here for almost 9 years, and I can talk to somebody for like half a second, and they say, "Oh, wow, cool. Where are you from?" I still have a strong accent. And I remember in Porto Alegre, I used to have a friend of mine that we used to work together, and he was from Uruguay, and he was just born in Uruguay. And then he moved to Porto Alegre when he was like a child, and he was like at his 30s, and he would speak with an accent, even though he's so close to languages. So I think to myself, well, if that guy living his whole life in Porto Alegre would still have an accent from Uruguay to Brazil, me speaking Portuguese, being in the US, I will always have an accent. So I don't really mind.
Yeah, this is all about phonetics.
Yeah,
it's impossible. It's impossible to sound like an American in this case, you know, because our phonetics is different. It would never, it will never be the same, you know.
Yeah, but at the end, what I would say, tell people is that don't make this as one thing preventing you to try to move abroad. It will be challenging, but it's important to know that here society was built on immigration, right? So there's people from everywhere here, and you will see all different accents, especially if you're working in an office in a company, especially in a multinational big company. That's an advantage, actually. So you're just to link. So I've been working now for Facebook and before for Apple. Both these companies and all the other big ones like Google, Amazon, companies like that, they all have this diversity efforts. So I was in a conference with Facebook last week, actually, and they were saying that the Latino population in the US makes up 15% of the country's population. At Facebook, only 5% of employees are Latinos, and only 3% of employees in leadership positions are Latinos at Facebook. So they have a push to try to balance that. So I would say it's something that it counts in our favor, us being from another country, because now companies are realizing that, hey, if we serve if we serve people across the globe, we need to have employees that represent those people, and we are underrepresented as of now. So most people are white Americans working in these large corporations, but if they want to serve the globe, they need to have the proper number of Brazilians, of Indians, of Chinese, of Mexicans. So and these big companies, they see that and they are working on that. So that might even create good chances for people from these regions, and Brazilians are definitely one of those. So yeah.
All right, and let's talk about a little bit about your experience at Apple, and then as an employee at Facebook. Was it easy to change your company, the company who took you to the United States, who gave you this opportunity to move abroad, which was your dream? So leave this company, quit, and go to another company like Apple and work at Apple. Was this transition, this change, easy to take, or how was it?
Yeah, so no, it was not easy. I remember still today, I had this, because I was always a Apple fan, so I was a customer. So I had this big iMac that I was using, and then I decided to let me look at the Apple website to see if they have any jobs that I could apply for. And I was working at DLL at that time. And then I found this one job that said, yeah, it required some Latin America experience. And I thought, why not? I'll give it a shot. I don't think Apple will ever call me, but I'll send my resume. So I kind of polished my resume to look it better, because it has been a while since I hadn't used it. I wrote a nice presentation letter and I sent my resume. And I was impressed when they contacted me just a few days after that. But just to link to the first question, Diogo, yes, DLL was the company who brought me to the US, but I don't think people should feel bad about leaving companies, even if they do something for you, because you are working for that. It's a professional relationship. So I work almost 5 years for DLL, yes, I'm grateful that they were the ones who brought me to the US, that gave me that opportunity. But it was not because of that that I would stop looking and trying to find better positions for myself. But that's the way it works. If they wanted somebody better than me, they would maybe, who knows, could have fired me and hire somebody else. So I don't think we should be thankful, but not that much, because it's most on us. So you have to drive your career, and that's the way I think. So I have to do things, and I have to drive changes. So that's what I did. So when it came to time to interview at Apple, that was very challenging. So we did interviews through the phone, and then it was my first time actually interviewing for a job in the US. Then they flew me from Pennsylvania to Austin, and I remember I spent the whole day in Austin. I did 12 interviews back to back, from early morning to late afternoon. I was kind of, my head was dizzy at the end, but it was very cool. I guess they realized that many interviews, it has to be relaxed. So it was in a very relaxed way. I spent the whole day interviewing, and then I flew back to my home at that time in Pennsylvania. I guess 2 days later, they call me and say, hey, we just need to do 2 additional interviews by phone. And then I did another 2 interviews by phone, and then they offered me the job. So I was actually very happy. Even my colleagues at DLL, they were happy for me, because it was such a gap between DLL, which is a nice company, but it's a small company, to Apple. It's like one of the biggest companies around. So people were understanding why I was leaving. So, and my family was very happy, because my wife was one key proponent of me looking for another job, because even though she loved Pennsylvania, she was tired of the winter, because the winters can be very long. It's like 5-6 months, and it gets dark really early in the day, like 4:30 it's dark, and then the day starts at 7:30. So for me, I was working, I wouldn't see the day. It was always night when I was back home. So she was pushing me to find a job in like Florida or in a warmer place. So she was very happy to move to Texas. So yeah, so that's when I moved to Apple and came to Austin. So I was afraid at first, yes, about moving to such a big company. Wow, what should I do there? I will be there, and there will be all these thousands of really, really smart people, and who am I to be there among them? But then you realize that people are just people, and then there are some very good people, but there are some average people, and just like any company, you have those really top performers, and you have average ones, and you even have low performers everywhere you go. So yeah, but at the end, it was a great experience. I really, really enjoyed working at Apple. It gave me this new perspective of working in such a large company.
And what about the work itself? What would you say about working at Apple in terms of your personal dreams and your career? Tell me about what's like. What was it like to work for a company like Apple? And what was your job there?
Okay. So yeah, so I'm as I said before, I'm an accountant, and I did business administration as well. So when I was hired at Apple, my job was to create a accounting and tax compliance function for Latin America at Apple, because before they had outsourced that to like PwC in each country. So it was the goal to have that centralized here in the US, and have Apple employees managing accounting and tax for these Latin America countries. At that time, it was just Brazil, Chile, Mexico, and Colombia. So it was a very exciting job, because I had to first terminate the agreements Apple had with PwC in these countries, and then hire people and transition the work from this outsourced provider to my own team at Apple, to be able to handle the very complex accounting and tax in Brazil and other Latin American countries. So that was my main role. It was to build the team and to be responsible for accounting and tax for Latin America. So that was great. It was a big challenge. But the one thing I remember the most was how nice it was at first to say that I used to work at Apple. Because for the other companies that I used to work for, even though they're very nice companies, most people didn't know them. So they would ask me, where do you work for? And I'd say, PwC or DLL. I know, and they are big companies, but most people outside of that word, they don't know. They say, what? And then when I moved to Apple, I say, where do you work? I work for Apple. And then everybody, oh, nice, cool. So it was a completely different reaction from people, and makes you proud to work in a company that you really like the products, that you are really a customer and not just an employee. So I was very happy in there. And so I did build that team. So at the end, when I left, I had a team of 20 people. I had 3 managers, and each manager had 5 or 6 people reporting to them. So that decision was not easy, to leave Apple to go on to Facebook. So that was very, very challenging for me internally, me discussing with myself, hey, should I do that? Why don't I just stay here? I am at Apple. I'm in this very nice position. I know what to expect. I know exactly what to do here. Why should I go to another one? But I think we have to keep moving in order to keep growing, right? If I would be there, I was becoming accommodated, too comfortable, not challenged enough.
In your comfort zone?
So I just, I was in my comfort zone. Yeah, it was easy. So I decided to take the challenge, and I thought to myself, well, if I would ever leave Apple, I would only leave to a company like, let's say, Google, Facebook, maybe Amazon. And then I got this offer from Facebook. So, okay, well, this is one of the companies that I would leave Apple for. And then I interviewed there. I really liked the company culture and vibe. So I decided to take the plunge and see what happened. So I've been there for 3 months, and I'm enjoying it so far.
I guess you have the same feeling working for Facebook, of being proud of working for Facebook. And talking about that, working for Facebook, is your job different? Are you on a different position, doing different stuff? What about your work at Facebook? So what are the
so it's very different. So that was one of the things that I liked, because ever since the beginning of my career at DLL and then at Apple, I was always focused on Latin America. So I was internal audit, Latin America, and then accounting and tax for Latin America. So I wanted to, not that I want to negate my Latin origins. I am Latin. It's the area that I know more about it, but I wanted to not to always focus on Latin America. So this position in Facebook, it's global. So that's one thing that I like it. I would have exposure to all the other regions. And it's not related to my prior experiences, but I can leverage my prior experiences to do this position. So right now, the official name of my job, it's Finance Quality Assurance Manager. So I need to ensure, because at Facebook,
could you repeat that, please?
It's Finance Quality Assurance Manager. So at Facebook, we outsource lots of day-to-day transactions to us, Accenture. So we have fewer employees, and then for transactional roles, we hire Accenture to actually do the job. So let's say accounts payable, accounts receivable, accounting, all those transactions, the person who is actually doing the job is not a Facebook employee, it's an Accenture employee. So my role, my team, we are responsible to making sure that the quality of these services that this provider provides Facebook across the world, it's up to standards. So it's at the level that we expect them to be. So my team, and I have myself and a team of 8 people now, we handle that. So we review the work that they do to make sure that they are doing the work up to the standards of Facebook. So it's not related to my prior job at Apple, not related to my prior experience, but it needs accounting knowledge, it needs internal audit knowledge. So it's a nice blend of experience that allows me to expand my knowledge, not going into an area that I have nothing to add. It's an area that, yes, I have some experience, but not specifically on that function. And it's global, so allows me to have exposure. Now, being responsible globally, it's sad to see that Latin America, actually, it's very small when you look at the world. So for us, from a Facebook business perspective, Latin America is like 2%, I guess. So I rarely focus my time on Latin America. So now I have to focus my time on North America, on Europe and Asia, specifically. So it has been a great challenge to kind of learn more and interact more with the globe. And it brings challenges, just time differences, something that I was not that used to. So now I have to have meetings with folks in Singapore. And sometimes you have to have meetings with folks in Singapore and California at the same time. It's impossible. One of those two will be sleeping. So you have to find a way to schedule a meeting that it's 10:30 at night for someone in Singapore. So it's at 6:30 in the morning in California. So for me in Texas, I'm able to attend. So you will start realizing how complex it is to do global operations, and just by the complexity of having meetings because of time differences. But it's very rewarding, and it's very nice, and you learn a lot by interacting with people from different backgrounds. You see that people from Asia, they have a different style than Europeans, than Americans, than Latinos. So it's been great so far.
Great. And let's change a little bit the talk. Coming back to the your personal experience, and as you are talking about all these things, what would you have done differently in all this that we are talking about?
What would I have done differently?
Yeah,
it's hard to say now. Looking back, I usually try to think about future, because I know I cannot change the past, but it's hard. I think I did the right. I stayed at PwC, which is a great school. You learn a lot, and it's very, up until today, it's very important on my resume. People value the fact that I worked for PwC for such a long time. I think I did a good decision moving to DLL. I think it was a great timing moving to the US, even though it was financially not the best timing because of the crisis. I think I would, knowing now what I know, I would have negotiated better my move to the US from a salary perspective, from a package in regards to help with relocation. Because when you first move abroad, you don't know the cost of living, you don't know the salaries. And then if you just make a pure conversion of the salary they're offering you, and then you convert by reais, and you think, wow, that's good. That's more than what I make now. But the cost of living in the US is different, right? And I was naive, I guess, at that time, that I was looking at the prices of cars. I said, wow, with this salary, yeah, I could buy this nice car. But then there's so many things here that are way more expensive than in Brazil. Like if you need to have someone working at your home, cleaning, helping you cleaning your house, it's very expensive. Any services that you need to have done, it's expensive. To buy a house, it's expensive. So I guess I would have negotiated better, which I didn't negotiate at all, I guess, my starting salary here in the US. So I would do that differently. I would be more, okay, I would value myself more, because I was accepting whatever they were offering me because I really wanted to move to the US. And here I learned that if somebody offers you a job, they want you as much as you want them. They want you as well. So you are equal forces in a negotiation. So you should be able to try to get more. But at that time, I didn't have that perspective. So I think that was one thing that I would do differently. I would negotiate a better salary, better package that would allow us even more comfortable life, I guess, at the beginning.
And to finish, Mr. And thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate that. The last question. What advice would you give to someone in international career? What would be some of the most relevant and important things that you would say to this person?
Yeah. So I would say, one, go for it. The two main things are, of course, the language. So study English and practice and try to be better. It's really, really important, because you will see it's one thing you being in Brazil and you speaking in English with somebody, some friend. It's a different thing when you are here and you are in a meeting at work and you have to speak only English and make people believe, understand, and agree with you. So I think the command of the language is key. So if you want to live abroad, continue studying English and study more if you can. And if it's something that you're really serious about, invest some money and take your time and do focus the time enhancing your language command. So that's key. And if you're already there, great. Second one, you have to have a sufficient background. So you have to have a good career in Brazil. So because it's not as difficult as people think for you to find a job abroad in the US. But of course, you have to be really good at what you do. So you need to really do well in whatever field you're working now, be good at it, have a good command of English. Because then if you're working in a corporate function, there's lots of opportunities out there and people are not aware of that, but you can apply to jobs in the US. And here goes the tip. So if you apply for a job in the US, apply at the beginning of the year, because the H-1B visa, which is the visa that they would use to bring people from other countries to the US, they have a certain number of visas that they can provide, and that usually ends in April. So if somebody, you can be the best candidate, but if you apply in July and there's no longer H-1B visas available for that year, the company won't be able to bring you to the US because you would have to wait until next year. So be great at your job and study English, and then just make it happen. Because at the end, most people, what I see is that people tend to make excuses, tend to blame others, and tend to believe that it's somebody else's fault. Nothing is somebody else's fault. We are responsible for everything that happens to us, right? So if you want to go outside, you gotta make it happen. So start making connections, get better at your English, get better at your own profession, and then online, the Google internet is there to allow us to search and research anything. So it's getting easier and easier. So I don't want to say it's easy. It's not easy, but it's easier than it was before. So the main thing is it's trust in yourself and make it happen. Don't wait for others. Don't blame others. If something's not working, you could do something different. So it's never somebody else's fault. It's always our fault. So take control of your life and do things and make it happen. So that's the one advice that I give.
Okay, very nice, Mr. Leandro. Thank you very much for your time again. And maybe if you have some chance to have this chat chance again, we will invite you. Okay, thank you very much, Mr.
Yeah, sure. Okay, thank you all. Bye-bye. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.